we're tackling a topic that has become a major point of discussion and debate: Canada's recent trade actions and their significant impact on the U.S. farming industry. The tensions between these two neighboring countries have reached a boiling point, and the ripple effects are being felt far and wide. If you've been following the news, you know this isn't just a political or economic issue. It's a crisis that's affecting thousands of hard-working American farmers and creating uncertainty across the agricultural sector. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into what's been happening, the history behind it, the latest development, and what the future could hold for the US and Canada's trade relationship. So stay tuned. It's going to be an eye-opening ride. Before we dive into the recent drama, let's start by putting things into perspective. To fully understand what's going on now, we need to take a step back in time and examine the trade history between Canada and the United States. Over the years, these two countries have been intertwined in a mutually beneficial trading relationship, particularly when it comes to agricultural goods. In fact, Canada has been one of the largest trading partners for the US and vice versa, with agricultural products making up a significant portion of that trade. From grains and dairy to livestock, American farmers have long relied on Canadian buyers to help sustain their operations. For Canada, the US has been an essential market for their agricultural products as well. This has been supported by long-standing trade agreements such as NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, and its successor, the USMCA, United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, which replaced NAFTA a few years ago. These agreements helped ensure the free flow of goods and services across the borders, benefiting farmers and businesses on both sides. They allowed farmers to access larger markets, increase exports, and even reduce barriers to trade. However, as trade relationships can be fragile, what seemed like a stable and beneficial partnership between these two countries has recently faced some serious challenges. The recent actions taken by both the US and Canadian governments have caused widespread uncertainty for farmers, who are now dealing with a variety of consequences that threaten their livelihoods. The trade tensions escalate. Now let's jump into the heart of the issue: the series of trade moves that have ignited these tensions. It all began with a bold decision by the US government to impose a hefty 25% tariff on Canadian goods, which included agricultural products. This move was part of a larger strategy by the US to protect its industries, reduce trade deficits, and assert more control over trade policies. However, what shocked many people was the fact that the tariffs were not just on manufactured goods, but also specifically targeted agricultural products, dairy, grains, and livestock, to name a few. The decision to impose tariffs on these essential agricultural exports immediately sent shockwaves through the farming community. For American farmers, Canada has been a vital market for their dairy, livestock, and grains. With the new tariffs in place, exporting to Canada has become significantly more expensive, and the demand for these products has dwindled. This has led to lower prices, reduced profits, and a feeling of financial instability among many farmers who depend on those exports to sustain their operations. In retaliation, Canada wasted no time in responding with its own set of tariffs targeting American agricultural products. This included tariffs on key commodities such as corn, soybeans, and beef, which are staples of the American farming industry. The Canadian government aimed to make American farmers feel the sting of the tariffs, hoping it would pressure the US to reconsider its stance and backtrack on the measures. And so began the back-and-forth trade war between the two countries, with each side retaliating against the other's actions. The devastating impact on US farmers. The trade conflict has had a wide-reaching impact on American farmers across various sectors. The tariffs have hit several key agricultural industries particularly hard, including dairy, grain, and livestock. Dairy farmers. Let's take a closer look at the dairy industry. American dairy farmers have relied on Canada as a crucial buyer of their products for years. In fact, the Canadian market has been an essential outlet for US milk, cheese, and butter. However, with the new tariffs, the cost of exporting dairy products has risen dramatically, making it more difficult for US farmers to remain competitive in the Canadian market. The result has been a massive reduction in demand for American dairy products, which has led to lower prices, financial strain, and even the potential closure of farms that can no longer survive under these conditions. Grain farmers. For grain farmers, especially those growing corn and soybeans, the tariffs have dealt a devastating blow. Canada has long been a significant importer of American grains, but now, with retaliatory tariffs in place, these exports have been severely disrupted. The increased costs and diminished demand have caused grain prices to plummet, leading to a surplus of crops that can't be sold. As a result, farmers are left with piles of unsold produce and are unable to generate enough income to sustain their operations. For many, this has led to financial losses, and some have even been forced to sell their land. Livestock farmers. Livestock farmers, particularly those involved in beef and pork production, have also been deeply affected by the escalating tariffs. The U.S. government's tariffs have made it more expensive for farmers to export livestock products to Canada, which has resulted in lower demand for these products. As prices fall, farmers are faced with reduced revenues and an increase in the cost of production. Many farmers are now left with tough decisions, such as reducing the size of their herds or looking for new markets, which may not be as lucrative as Canada's. Canada's strategic moves. While U.S. farmers have been struggling under the weight of tariffs, Canada has been taking strategic steps to protect its own agricultural sector and reduce its dependence on the U.S. market. Diversifying trade partners. One of the key strategies Canada has adopted in response to the trade tensions is diversifying its trade partners. With the U.S. being an unpredictable partner at the moment, Canada has been working to strengthen its relationships with other countries, including the European Union and China. Expanding into these new markets helps reduce Canada's reliance on the U.S. and creates new opportunities for Canadian farmers. This move has the potential to reshape global trade dynamics and reduce the negative impact of U.S. tariffs on Canadian agriculture. Strengthening domestic support. Canada has also been focusing on bolstering domestic support for its farmers. The Canadian government has rolled out a variety of programs designed to help farmers weather the storm caused by the trade dispute. These include financial assistance, grants, and subsidies aimed at helping Canadian farmers maintain their competitiveness and stay afloat during these uncertain times. Government reactions, a tug of war. The U.S. and Canadian governments have had starkly different responses to the trade dispute. The U.S. government's stance. The U.S. government has defended its decision to impose tariffs on Canadian goods, citing the need to protect American industries and address trade imbalances. Officials argue that the tariffs will help level the playing field for American farmers and manufacturers. However, this position has been met with strong opposition from various groups within the U.S., including farmers, industry associations, and lawmakers. Many of them argue that the tariffs have done more harm than good, particularly for farmers who rely on export markets. The Canadian government's response. In contrast, the Canadian government has been vocal in its opposition to the U.S. tariffs. Canadian officials argue that the tariffs are unfair and harmful to both economies. They emphasize their commitment to defending the interests of Canadian farmers and ensuring that the country's agricultural sector remains competitive. Canada has been working hard to engage with other international partners, explore new opportunities, and strengthen existing relationships with trade partners. How this affects consumers. While it's clear that the U.S. and Canadian farmers are bearing the brunt of this trade war, everyday consumers are also feeling the effects. The tariffs imposed on agricultural products can result in higher prices for a variety of goods. This means consumers in both countries may soon find themselves paying more for dairy, meats, grains, and other staples. As businesses adjust to these increased costs, those costs will likely be passed on to consumers. Additionally, the availability of certain products could become limited. For example, if the U.S. struggles to export dairy products to Canada, Canadian consumers could face a shortage of American dairy products, resulting in higher prices. Similarly, American consumers could experience a similar shortage of Canadian products, especially in the beef and grain sectors. Looking ahead, what's next? As we look ahead, the future of the trade tensions remains uncertain. These escalating tariffs could lead both U.S. and Canadian farmers to rethink their production strategies. U.S. farmers may start to explore new markets to reduce their reliance on Canada, while Canadian farmers may focus on strengthening their domestic production and seeking alternative international markets. Governments on both sides may introduce new policies, such as subsidies or tax incentives, to help farmers stay competitive in the face of these challenges. In the larger global picture, we may see more trade agreements being negotiated to replace the ones that have been damaged in this dispute. These agreements could reshape trade dynamics, creating both new opportunities and new challenges for farmers around the world. In conclusion, the trade tensions between Canada and the U.S. have created a perfect storm for American farmers, who are grappling with the consequences of tariffs and retaliatory measures. Meanwhile, Canada is strategically diversifying its trade partnerships and reinforcing its domestic support to shield its agricultural sector. The outcome of this trade war remains uncertain, but it will undoubtedly have far-reaching implications for both farmers and consumers in the years to come. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more in-depth coverage, and let us know what you think in the comments below. What do you think the long-term effects of this trade drama will be? How do you see this affecting the future of farming in both countries? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and take care.